So you passed out from IIT Kharagpur, if I'm
That's
not
correct.
wrong. And after that, you started working for various firms and even got into teaching and then started your own companies. You also did counseling for some time. So what was the driving force for all these transitions from one thing to another?
So wherever the opportunity popped up for something that I was interested in, I took it. So
it was.
I like teaching, and I had taught in graduate school in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So when an opportunity came to teach, I'd done a lot of teaching there actually, both in college as well as what is known as outreach. So for companies that used to come to the university to get trained. So I did a lot of teaching there. So I've always liked teaching.
Okay.
And similarly, when, for jobs, whenever somebody approached me for a job and I thought it was interesting and good, I took it. Same thing with entrepreneurial opportunities. If I saw a problem that I wanted to solve, then became an entrepreneur, started a company doing that.
Okay. So you were a permanent faculty or visiting faculty for different universities?
Both. I've done both. So I was permanent faculty at Bharati Vidyapeeth, for example, most recently.
Okay.
And UW Milwaukee, I was permanent faculty, not in the college itself, but in the outreach.
Okay. Sir, I want to be a counselor because that is my sort of goal, to be a counselor. So my main question is, out of all the challenges you faced during transition, what was the main challenge for transitioning to a counselor? Because that is what interests me.
So as far as counseling goes, what I have done is only counseling entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
There's lots of different kinds of counseling, right? There's psychological counseling, psychiatric counseling, there's career counseling. And although I've done some of that informally with young people, but most of the counseling sort of that I've done is mentorship of entrepreneurs and small companies, giving them advice on direction and so on. So challenges there are not specific to becoming a counselor, but in getting people to actually listen to you. That is, of course, the biggest challenge in any counseling. So I've told people what to do and how to do it, and sometimes they've not followed my advice. So.
Sir, looking back on your journey and knowing knowing what you know now, what would be one piece of advice you would have given yourself along the way, like before everything?
There's lots of advice I would have given, but I'll tell you what advice I give to my sons is that the only thing you regret as you grow older is the opportunities you never took or the chances you didn't take.
Never leave an opportunity.
Yes, the things you didn't do or the opportunities you didn't take are the only regrets you have. You rarely regret something that you actually did. So go ahead and do it.
So, okay, that means you have some regrets, right?
Yeah, everybody has some regrets.
Okay. Sorry, if I'm not wrong, you mentioned in your LinkedIn that for several years I have been coaching and helping entrepreneurs to learn from my mistakes and my learning. So, can you share any experience for me to learn from your mistakes?
So again, that advice is primarily for entrepreneurs. If you want to be an entrepreneur. So I've made several mistakes early on, and I'm making less of them. Hopefully it's tending to zero soon, but still we make mistakes. I make mistakes. But So the biggest mistake is actually not finding a real problem that people have. And I talked about this in various seminars and I've written about it, but it's the vitamin versus aspirin problem, which is something Guy Kawasaki actually formulated. So the idea is that you don't try to sell people vitamins, you try to sell them aspirins. Means try to solve a real pressing need, a headache that they have, try to get rid of that headache for them, rather than something that's just nice to have.
Okay.
So that is one of the first things that people need to learn, and mistake that I made early on. But that's a mistake that many people make in terms of create problems to solve. And this applies, I guess, not just to entrepreneurship, but to everything in life. If you're counseling people, just doing career counseling or psychological counseling or whatever, you have to really get down to specific question that they need to understand, or a specific fact that they need to understand. And they may not even be asking the right question to you as a counselor, but you have to find what the real questions they need to ask and answer those. Solve those problems.
I'm currently in IPM program of I am Rachi, and it is a 5-year course. Sorry?
What is IPM?
Sir, Integrated Program in Management, BBA plus MBA. Okay. So by the time I get out of college, I'll be 23. So I was just wondering if, let's suppose I get into counseling and stuff. So do you think people will be ready to listen to a 25-year-old boy? Because comparatively, I'll have less knowledge. So with regard to that, even if I give right advice or something like that, they will understand me. They will try to listen to me. What are your views on this?
So that's a very good question. And the short answer is no. They will not listen to you. So I'll tell you, a lot of young people approach me saying that they want to be an executive coach, or they want to be some kind of coach. They want to give me advice. And with all due respect, they're like you said, they're in their 20s, early 20s, mid 20s, even late 20s. And I don't generally feel that they have much to add. Although sometimes I do even have conversations with them, because I obviously will learn something from them. And it's also true that somebody who's coaching you doesn't have to be better than you or know more than you. So I also look at their actual resume, who they've helped, how they've helped. And the other thing that I can tell you is that people would be willing to listen to you if you present them with facts which are backed by data. So if you tell me, I have the data that 70% of people in your position do this, then I'm willing to listen. Yeah. And then I won't look at your age or your experience or anything, because you're coming to me with facts, you're coming to me with data that's defensible, not just opinions. And remember that these are not facts necessarily that you got out of your books. These are facts that you have researched, facts that specifically apply to my situation.
Okay. Thank you for that answer. It was really helpful. Sir, you also mentioned that you changed the company's direction from content provider to a service provider to stay in the game. So what exactly did you do to stay in the game? That was a bit confusing for me.
Yeah, so this was in iCinema, which was a website that I started back in 1998. And in 1999, we streamed the first full-length movie on the net. So it was very pioneering. Nobody had ever streamed a full-length movie. And that movie, by the way, was an Indian movie, which was Mirch Masala. Okay. And that business had a lot of potential. As you can see, there's now Netflix and Disney and all these people, they're all streaming videos. So definitely the potential was there, but it was too early in the game. And the market that I was trying to address obviously was the Indian diaspora in the US and abroad, who didn't get these movies, who didn't have access to Indian movies. That, just like me, I liked those kinds of movies and I didn't have access to them. But because it was too early and not enough people even had the bandwidth to watch these movies online, I decided to shut that part of the business. However, I still had a lot of resources, servers, bandwidth, all that coming into my data center. And so I utilized that for providing the same services to other companies. So for example, I was that time in Wisconsin, I provided that service to the Wisconsin Department of Transportation. So they put all the highway cameras online, and so it could be accessed through the web on a web page, which we built for them, and we put together the whole system. And they were very pleased with it. Some people even told me that it has saved lives because they were able to get to a scene faster and they knew what was happening at the scene because of the video, accidents, fires, things like that. So it was very gratifying that way. And of course, it was profitable. So, and the reason I did that obviously was, quote unquote, to stay in the game, means I continued to do streaming business in the hope that eventually we would get back into the content business. But I discovered other things about the content business that were not so positive. And so I decided that I didn't want to be in the content business. And so eventually I sold that company.
Okay.
So that's what I meant by staying in the game, is that I continue to use the resources and continue to use the same technologies, but for others, in the hope that I might use it again for myself.
Okay. Sir, you have a key strength of growing company, and that is just amazing. I also wish to have a similar strength. So what should I work on? Like, how things like this happen? Like growing companies?
Very simple, actually. It is just hard work. So the way I grew that company is I simply picked up the phone and called people, and people would often abuse me on the phone. In those days, it was mostly landline. This was in the early 2000s, late 90s.
Mm-hmm.
So, they didn't want to hear anything I said, etc. But, I was inspired by another guy who used to do 100 phone calls a day. That was his target. Of course, I didn't do that many, but I think I got to 30, 40 phone calls a day quite often. So they say, work smart, not hard, but in fact, you have to work smart and hard. And quantity and quality matter in growing companies. So you just have to work many hours a day and just go at it. That's how you grow companies. And of course, all the other things are part of the equation too. You have to be tackling the right problem. You have to have the right solution. You have to have a good pitch. You have to have good, sales ability, which you develop. But having all that, you can still not be able to grow a company if you don't get quantity.
So quantity and quality.
Quantity and quality. Because out of every 100 calls, maybe out of every 200 calls, you'd probably get one customer.
Okay.
That's how it works.
Sir, what was one of the biggest, or what to say, harshest decision you ever had to make as an entrepreneur? And how you came to that?
So that was my startup, which I did after this one. And it was actually a product called Vizo. It was a video recorder. You could plug it into your cable TV and into the internet, and you could record anything from the internet, like from YouTube, or you could record anything from cable TV. And it also had the ability to do fast forwards and, rewind live TV,
Yeah.
fast forward live TV after buffering. It was based on a product called TiVo, which already existed, but I expanded on that. I introduced that in India. That was the first such product in India, but it was the wrong product and it was the wrong time. It was the wrong product because here in India, we have many jugaad ways of achieving the same thing. So people said, I don't need this because I can just tell my servant or my parent or my child, if they're home, to record it on a videotape. So this allowed automatic taping, for example, automatic recording. Like if you're going to be at work and you're going to miss your favorite TV program, you could record it and watch it later. This was maybe difficult for you guys to understand because you're seeing only on-demand video. In those days, we had, if you missed a program, you missed it.
Yeah, I heard the hype about all the Ramayan and everything.
Yeah, right.
Sir,
so that was the most difficult decision, to shut it down, because I had invested a lot of money and also some friends had invested money in it, and I couldn't do anything about it, so I had to shut it down.
Okay. Sir, Podbank is just a fantastic idea. I really love it. I mean,
Good.
Who thought that drones would make the delivery so easy that we are not even at home and get our stuff? Maybe in future, I would get my pizza delivered by drones. But I think it is precisely for big cities. So where do you see expansion for Podbanks?
So we are still figuring that out, frankly, to be very honest with you. But I believe that there is a potential for it both in urban areas as well as rural areas. And the key is that Podbanks are basically for asynchronous delivery. That means that if somebody is not home or they're not available, maybe even an office delivery, then you can have the delivery put into a Podbank, and then they can pick it up at any time. Now, right now, in rural areas, mostly people are not that busy, or there are always people home, but it can happen. And in smaller towns, it can happen as people get busier, as lifestyles change, that people are not available. And it's not just e-commerce delivery, it can be any delivery. For example, you have to give somebody something, you have to give a friend a book or some keys to your house or whatever, some food that your mother made and you want to give it to your friend. You don't have to meet him or her. You can simply leave it into a Podbank. And not only that, you can simply put it into a Podbank near your house, and we transport it to a Podbank near their house, and they can simply pick it up.
That would be very helpful.
Yeah, so it does provide convenience, and it saves somebody to actually go across town and make the delivery. So it is a delivery thing, but it's a very convenient delivery process. You don't have to wait for it to be picked up also. Same thing with Amazon returns or Flipkart returns. You don't have to wait for the person to come to pick up your parcel. Just put it in the Podbank and it can be returned. And the goal is eventually, of course, like you mentioned, is to have the drones delivered to those Podbanks. And that is something that will not happen very soon. It will take at least a couple of years to get there. But initially now we are focusing on the Podbanks.
Okay. Sir, you mentioned about tough economic times of 2002 in your LinkedIn. So, sir, what were the key takeaways from times like that?
Okay. Tough economic times. Yes, it was very difficult. So the way we survived, in fact, we thrived when a lot of people were shutting down, is that early on we had established long-term contracts. And that's something that we are doing even now. I'm a very big fan of having long-term contracts, which is a kind of annuity. Instead of making a one-time sale, you ask the customer to lock into a contract which goes on for 3 years, 5 years. So our minimum contracts were 3 years, some were 5 years. So even though business was down, we continued to get revenue from those contracts.
So it was because of the long-term contracts. Always go for long-term contracts.
Yeah. Even it's easy to make a one-time sale, but that one-time sale, that money dissipates after some time and it gets used up. Whereas in long-term contract, that money keeps coming in and you can keep your cash flow burning or your cash flow running. Even if you burn, some of it every month or every quarter or every year, whatever it is, those contracts keep giving you some money.
Yeah. Sir, you are a techie to the core and want to be an HR head. I'm pretty sure everyone must have asked why the sudden change or similar stuff.
Yeah.
But I was interested to know how and when you realized you want to be an HR head. What was the story behind it?
Yeah, so I've actually blogged about it. I maybe send you a link. But basically, see, at some point you realize that you can't alone do everything. So I was doing, and to some extent still doing, some of everything. The tech, the operations, the sales, fundraising, everything. And you can't do everything. That's why it's important to have a team. But when I started as a sole founder. And so sole founder, or even if you have a co-founder, your goal should be to get people on board, other people on board who will do what you do. And my belief strongly, and I'm not the first person to say this, but my belief is that you have to find people who are better than you, smarter than you, or just better at operationalizing or better at sales or whatever it is that you need. And that is one of the important things about HR is recruitment, right?
Yeah.
So you have to recruit people. And in fact, somebody said very correctly that recruitment is actually a marketing function. You have to market to people how great your company is to work for, whether it is because of the stock options or if it is because of the potential or if it is because of the very interesting work or the work environment, whether it's that you have a pool table and you only have to work 5 days a week, whatever it is. You have to market it to potential employees. You have to market your enterprise to potential employees. And once they're on board, then you have to keep them on board. You have to keep them engaged, and you have to make sure that their work that they're doing is meaningful to them. And of course, meaningful to the company, but it has to be meaningful to them. And if it is not being meaningful, like especially very smart people get bored doing the same thing over and over again, then you have to find other people to replace them in that role and continue to give them other more challenging things to do. So this is all HR function actually. And so I'm trying to spend more and more time on actually developing people, helping them enjoy what they're doing, and recruiting people. And believe me, it's hard. It's hard. It's
so you are
tech.
So you are getting your A team ready.
Yes.
So how exactly do you find your A players for the team, and have you found any of them?
Yeah. So I found good players and not so good players, both.
Okay.
And the only way to find such people is actually network. You have to network with people. You have to network online. So I keep posting on Facebook and LinkedIn, and it's not because I love social media, but that social media is really an avenue for me to connect with people. So people know who I am, what I'm doing, and then I see what other people are doing, and then people who are interesting to me, I can connect with them deeper. And I've also joined various online networking groups, for example, Lunch Club. I don't know if you're familiar with that. Something that's really been very useful to me. I met very interesting people there, and it's all online networking.
Okay.
So that, and there are some other groups that I've joined where they have clubhouse meetings or team meetings or Zoom meetings, just to connect with other people.
So how exactly do you start looking for these people? Suppose if you want someone for marketing, right? So how will you set up essential threshold criteria? What exactly will you search for? And sorry for ending that sentence with a preposition.
It's good. I like that you're conscious of your grammar. I'm a grammar Nazi. But yes, it's hard to say. See, it depends on the situation. It depends on what kind of person you're looking for, what the job is for. If I were looking for tech people, I would be on different forums. If I'm looking for marketing or sales people, it's completely different source. But you just have to keep networking. In fact, and again, to be very honest, I'm not a great networker, but I've learned to network, and I force myself to network, and I enjoy it sometimes also. You meet interesting people. But networking is the key to everything actually in your life, not just in business. Okay, if you want to find that special person to spend the rest of your life with, you have to network. You can't be sitting at home and never go out and meet that special person. Okay, of course, yeah, maybe your parents will find someone for you, but that may not be exactly the right person that you want. So if you want a business partner, if you want employees, or if you want employers, if you're simply looking for a job, again, you have to network. If you're looking for opportunities, let's say you want to invest in real estate or you invest in the stock market, again, it's of course easier now because a lot of things are online, but still you have to network to really understand what is going on in the market, for example. Because if you just read what's in the news in the market, you'll probably end up investing in the wrong stocks. If you only read what's online, because that's, it's being sold to you essentially. Yeah. Same thing in the real estate. So if you want to make a real estate investment, you actually have to go and meet people and ask questions and find more people who think like you do or who have the same goals as you do. Because otherwise you're simply going to be sold to. Personal relationships and business. You have to network to find clients, to find employers, to find employees, to find vendors, to find other partners. Just network.
Sir, I am from a non-technical field. I'm doing BBA right now. But I'm very curious about whatever you have been doing in technology and everything. So what advice would you give to an undergrad student like me so as to enhance myself?
So I'll tell you something. If you don't know some tech, it's like 50 years, 40 years ago, you didn't know how to read.
Yeah.
Okay. It's in today's world, not knowing tech is a form of illiteracy. That may be a little bit harsh, and maybe you don't want to hear it. Maybe it's a little surprising and also maybe discomfort producing for you, but it's true. You should be able to at least maybe put up a website, and there are lots of tools now. There's WordPress, Shopify, and all these different tools that you can use to put up a website. But still, you have to know a little bit of tech there. You have to obviously know how to do spreadsheets if you're doing management, and it's not just entering numbers in the spreadsheets. You have to be really good at formulas and pivot tables and so on. And ideally, you should know how to program, because at some point in your life, you'll come up with data, or you'll come up with something that you need to parse, or you need to just automate, and you should be able to do some simple programming, even if so I still do basic batch programming on DOS, which is just writing batch files. And I've automated, for example, backups. So my server does an automatic backup, which I've written a bash script in Linux, okay, which is also a simple form of programming. So it automatically creates backup files, and then I've written a batch file on my computer, which is a DOS batch file, and it automatically logs in, downloads the backups, and saves it on my laptop, which I then automatically also written another batch file to transfer it to a hard drive, external hard drive. So this is just one example, right?
Yeah.
There are lots of little things that you should be able to do on your computer, on your laptop, or on your phone, maybe even write a simple app. Again, there are many tools now. In fact, it's getting even better. I have not explored this, but now there are no code tools, means you don't even need to know how to code, but you still should learn some coding, because you begin to understand the underlying logic of these apps and the software that you're going to create, even with no code tools, or use even the software that you're using, you begin to understand how they work. So definitely I would say learn that. And the second thing that I would learn, other than, or second or whatever, and thing that I would learn, which is very important, is databases, because databases are a way of organizing information.
Yeah.
And if you understand databases, you pretty much understand technology, really how it works. So I would strongly advise, I don't know if your program has that, but definitely have a course in databases and some programming courses, and learn how to maybe put up a simple website or make a simple app.
Yeah, it is better to hear harsh truth in the starting than to learn it the hard way.
Yeah.
I'll definitely work on these things. Thank you so much. In all, this is all what I wanted to capture in this interview, so that while studying at IIM, I also get the real-time knowledge from leaders like you. Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable time. It was really great knowing your journey. Sir, I hope you don't mind.
Thank you for inviting me to talk to you, and thank you for listening. And thank you, hopefully, for following my advice.
Yes, sir, definitely.
Or at least some of it.